Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Defenders Live. I am your host, Laura Thorson. Tonight, I want to bring someone to the table who has been on my show multiple times, Brian Hill of the Complete Combatant. We're going to talk about some of the wonderful intellectual things that Brian Hill always has to offer to be an advocate for people, to help you grow and help you learn and develop in your shooting skill and in life. But part of this interview, too, is honestly a bit scary for me because I'm going to practice something live on the air that I haven't fully practiced in quite some time in this way. And that is Brian Hill's principle of letting go. And in doing so, I have not come with an outline or a script. And you might notice the intro to this video isn't quite as tied up neatly as it usually is. And that's because I'm not reading anything. It's just coming from my heart. And I think in practicing this and showing this to you guys, I'm showing courage in this moment to do something different, to try something new. And I trust Brian along this process as well. We have become very good friends, and he's someone that I respect and admire. So we're going to see how this goes, and we're going to speak about some of the things that you guys have been wanting to know and have reached out to me online about. But then we're going to take a turn sideways, I guess you'd say, and go a little bit deeper. Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed, whether you're watching on Rumble or YouTube or listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you find this show. If you don't want to miss another episode, head to defenders-live.com and become a free subscriber. That way, every new episode gets delivered straight to your inbox. And if you're looking for top-tier firearms and self-defense training, go to defenders-usa.com and check the calendar to see what's coming to your area this year. Hey, Brian.
Hey, here we go fearlessly, huh?
I know. So this was a bit of a curveball for you, I think, because we didn't discuss this beforehand. And I don't know if you're like me, but I like to be prepared, and I kind of like to know what I'm getting myself into. And I wouldn't
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't do this if I didn't trust you so much and I didn't believe that you trusted me as a friend as well. And it could go sideways, but it could be brilliant. Who knows? And I do want you to talk about what you informed me that I said I was interested in months ago that I forgot about, something about creativity. So I would like to dive into that. And I do appreciate you also being willing to just see where this goes. So with that, let's start off with what you did prepare to come here for. And I'm not even sure how to tee it up. I have no idea. Lead the way, Brian.
So this is a formula that is, I don't want to lose everybody here. There's a bit of math in it. It's a math formula, but it's also a philosophy formula. And I get the question all the time, how do I motivate myself to get better?
Okay.
And creativity is the way you motivate yourself. But we don't understand creativity. We think that either the muse gives it to us or God sparks it in us. But what we found, and this is not my work, but creativity comes from the amount of attempts tried, by the combinations of things that you put together, how much time you spend doing it, and how close to the edge of chaos and order do you live. And this is what gives us energy. Like I practice a lot, but it's because I'm thriving in a creative environment. And I think a lot of people think that practice is well-regulated, rigid, routine, and organized. But what the research finds is it's quite the opposite of that. And the real problem for people is we all suffer from blind spots. And the true nature of blind spot is you can't see it.
Yeah.
So we've got cognitive biases and we've got habits that get in the way of everything we do. So as a trainer, you're always trying to manipulate these biases and habits into something that actually benefits the person.
Which you're great at doing. Thank God you're on the side of light, not on the side of dark, Brian.
Well, it has been the other way. I admit in my past I have, used it, but I'm very interested in myself getting better and everybody else. That's what really motivates me, but it's very difficult. People fight this at every step of the way.
So is the only way that one can find a blind spot is other people seeing it in them and telling them the truth in love?
Well, funny you asked that too,
yourself.
but so like cognitive dissonance to get in our way or our biases, there's a German word, it's called Einsteinleg, which means attitude bias. We have an anchoring bias, confirmation bias, conformity bias, fear of failure. All these things come into play for people. And they're very useful. These biases are kind of useful for human beings because they allow us to make decisions with a lot of input, which is also horrifying. Decide how to do things without a lot of input. So when it comes to getting better at something, we don't want to use a habit or a bias to get us there. We want to see who we are. So how do we see our blind spots? Well, you've got to have mindfulness, which means you have to be fully present when you do something and really notice how you avoid or shy away from things. Because the best way to find a blind spot is you don't want to do it.
So it's the feeling you get inside your body that is resistance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you feel that resistance, what do? Start asking questions, start getting curious?
Yeah. So you question your assumptions. Why do I not want to do this? Why do I don't think, what is it that I think that's unimportant about this or not important for me, especially to look at? And then we have to look at diverse ideas. Who thinks differently than I do and why? So just take shooting. Like some people don't want to talk about timers. You know? Some people want to talk about it too much. So we have to find the diverse ideas that put it together. And then we need to slow our decisional process just a bit. Because if it is a blind spot, it's automated. So you have to take a second. It's like right before a set, you should take a second and have preparatory cues so you can really feel what you're about to do.
Right.
And then you have to look at your past choices because that shows me who you really are, shows me who I really am. How did you get to this place? And what did you choose? And what do you think is important? Most people don't see what they choose on a daily basis. The
they don't want to look at it.
No. It's all free will to them. But the horrifying thing is we do the same thing every day.
Well,
with diminishing results over time. So if you start the greatest dry fire practice or workout program, in 90 days, it becomes less effective.
Yeah, because you adapt.
The nature of it.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you have to change things. So you have to look at your past choices and say to yourself constantly, am I making the progress that I want?
Right.
So this little formula came about because philosophers looked at this. And then I know everybody hates math, but it quantifies how we do things. And you make a little formula like this, that creativity equals attempts, which means how you approach failure.
So does this have anything to do with the fact that I messaged you one day and I was saying like, my dry fire is feeling like I would rather mash potatoes manually with a potato masher every day of my life than to pull the trigger one more time because I'm not getting anything out of it anymore. It's just a thing I do and I can't. And you said, well, you're bored is what you told me. Okay. Now I know I'm bored, which is like, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, but now what? You know what I mean? Yeah. So is this normal that people go through this, no 100%. Matter what it is? Okay, because it's like, the working out is repetitive, but it's just different enough or there's enough challenge to it that I don't get bored with it. But with the dry fire, I get bored more easily. I'm not sure why that is.
We need novelty and complexity in our training. So we tend to do it a little bit more in workouts because there's a lot of programs offered. And then a lot of modalities. And when I say modalities, you could do kettlebells or you could do, body weight exercise. And so you're always changing your activity.
Yeah.
And then your feedback is, how do I feel? So, and am I getting stronger? Does my physique and so you get this feedback loop that's being fulfilled. Yeah. But with dry practice, you don't get that sometimes because like if you take somebody like you who is so passionate and committed, but you get in a rigid plan, you've gotten to the point where it's not, you saw it in your metrics and I saw it because you were sending them to me. I was like, you're not getting better. You've reached the top of this.
Yeah.
So what's that next percentage? And this is what most people never get to because when they look at attempts, their first thing is, I don't want to do it wrong.
Oh.
Because that'll create a bad habit. But that's why we call it attempts, not failures. You've got to try something new. You've got to attempt it in a different way. You've got to put different ideas together. Then you
I have not figured out how to do that yet. And Adam says he's going to help me, but.
So, like for me in dry practice, and it's just, shooting show, we'll stick on that. But I have one day that's all flashlight based. I do everything around using a flashlight, how it works. And then I got a basement, so I can turn the lights off. I use cover. I use it from different sides of cover. I see the manipulation. So it's interesting. I don't want to do that every day, but I do that. One day is the living safety rules. Everything with weird backgrounds and thinking about how I'm going to manipulate the gun and do things different. One day is draw strokes of different hand positions. One day is all movement. Everything I can do, I want to do from movement. One day is testing procedures, tests that I constantly run to see what I'm doing. So I never do the same thing, although all of it's the same skills.
Yeah.
These are different attempts all the time. So it keeps me super interested. And then if I have a day and I say, God, I don't want to do it, I draw out all these plans that I have and I say, what haven't I done recently? Because that tells me something I don't want to work on. And that happened to me this morning when I got ready to practice. And so I got out my feedback drills that I do for the fundamentals, draw, stroke, and process. And I did all those feedback drills. And after the first two, I was so immersed in what I was doing in the attempts that I no longer thought, God, I really don't enjoy this. I'm not getting better. Because the real big problem is I'm not the best shooter in the world, but I'm pretty good at what I do. To get to that next level is a very difficult process. And you're feeling that too, because I watched your scores. Once you get in the 90 percentiles, anything after that is like squeezing blood from a turnip, it feels like. So what we really got to do is get more attempts and then put different combinations together. So we've gone attempts and combinations.
Is it actually a disadvantage that I'm doing dry fire between sets, like in the 1.5, 2 minutes between sets? Like, I'm just trying to use my time wisely, but maybe that's not the way I should be doing it.
I think it's great if it works for a while, but maybe sometimes your dry fire is your warm up. Maybe sometimes it's your cool down.
Yeah, I do really warm up actually, but
yeah. So how's your attention? That's a real question,
Well, when I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, my attention was insane. It was awesome because everything was just so still and quiet. My mind was still. I could feel everything in my body, my heart beating, like every breath. Like it was just so tuned in. And then when I'm not getting up at 4:30 in the morning anymore, I'm doing it at like noon or whenever I can fit it in, and life is chaotic. It's really hard to tune in.
Well, you learned the biggest lesson that all hyper trainers learn. Hyper level competitors, and sleep is important.
Oh my gosh, did I ever learn that lesson?
You can't do without it, but we all try. When I went to the Olympic Training Center, the first thing they told every athlete there is you don't sleep enough. And it was horrifying what they said. You need 9, 10 hours, 11 hours of sleep, So they started scheduling and tracking and using metrics, which makes you really weird about your sleep. But it was the most important thing. They said, all this practice you're doing is not synthesized into skill unless you sleep.
The recovery. It's true.
And it's the truth of it. So we can't trade sleep for intensity and quietude when we need it. We have to find the space. The good news is, the next part of the equation is time. How much time do you have? If you don't have a lot of time, then your gearing up and your cooling down has to be very quick. A simple skill like what we're doing can be done in 5 minutes. It would be better to do 5 minutes of it that you could pay attention to and know it's going to end. So it leaves an open bookmark in your mind, so you'd be better ready for it. And you might want to come back to it. The problem is if we do it, like you say, you do it between every set. If you're going to do, most people, when they do sets, somewhere between 12 and 20 sets in a workout, that's just how it works out. Most people do about 300 or 400 reps. It's a formula that we find that most people do. You and I talked about this one time. You look to see how many reps you do. Usually that's what good workouts look like. They're somewhere between 200 and 500 reps, usually in that 300 or 400 range. So say you have to do it 12 times. Are you really paying attention? Or are you just getting ready for your next set?
Right.
Would it be better if you did one set that you said, all right, this is all I got?
But also, here's my argument. Also, my argument is there is a value to just shooting the gun without having to think about shooting the gun. I mean, that is a skill in and of itself. Well, what is the fancy word for it? I don't. God, I know. Yeah, maybe it is. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. And so, so that is a good thing in some cases. That is one thing that I've often heard people say is like, be fully present in the entire trigger press. Well, on the worst day of my life, I won't be present for the trigger press at all. I'm just going to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. My mind will be focused on other things, and they should be. And so that should just be built into my body, which makes sense. But you're saying but practice is different. You should never practice that way.
Well, the idea is you should practice to be present so that when you're not present, it's well orchestrated.
Okay. That makes sense.
So that system, when what you don't want to automate is the decision to shoot.
Yeah.
Which many people do in their dry practice every time they do it.
Right.
I want to be fully present to what is the start and what is the stop signal,
Yeah.
And as I'm making a press, can I make an adjustment? And that's, the next part of the formula is chaos and order. How much order, how rigid are you? Because that's really bad for your practice. The Soviets did a study on strength training, and they said the more varied the strength training is, the greater time in between the sets and the days of training, the better the body adapts. Now, this study can never be replicated because you just can't force people to do what they did, but they found that works better, which put every trainer on their ear, because that's not how we do things. We train this way, we do this, but it's a balance between the edge of chaos and order. If you're very chaotic, you don't pay attention, you do whatever you want, you just move on. What we're looking for in our training is the edge, where I pay attention enough, but it's novel enough that it drives my attention. And that's what builds creativity. Which could also be looked
at as challenge, though, right?
Yes. Yeah, your challenge skill level. Yep.
Okay. Because I can relate to that. That word resonates better with me. Okay.
But you're very orderly in a lot of ways.
I am. Yeah, that's why this interview scares me, because after we get done talking about this, who friggin' knows where it's going to go? Yeah. That's me to death.
I'm more chaotic by nature, but I created discipline. I need a bit of the more rigid in my training schedule. Like, I am disciplined now. Yeah, I don't do anything because I want to. This is the habituation.
So
the discipline is the habituation.
How does that tie in with risk, with being a risk taker versus not a risk taker? Because I feel like I'm a risk taker in some ways. And also like to be organized. I mean, can the two live together?
I think it's a degree of percentage. You're correct.
It's a spectrum.
So your shooting tells the truth. If your accuracy mode drives everything, then you're not a big risk taker. You're managing your risk about 4% of what you're capable of. And you need to be very careful about over-risking, because that'll stretch you out. A big risk taker, they're not going to pay attention until the raw edge of as fast as they can go. Everything to pay attention. So you're correct in that. It doesn't mean you're risk averse, but it means that you need to modulate it just a bit so it's not too much. Or like I'm on the other end, I got to make sure that I'm engaged, that there's enough in this to get me to really, really pay attention. If I figure something out, I stop paying attention. And what you'll see, you've probably seen me do it, is, I change courses very correctly, sometimes incorrectly, just quickly. I'm like, all right, I'm done doing that, and that hasn't been the best for me, but I also have a loyalty thing that, like, once I commit to something, I can't give up on it. And I've also followed that until the end where it doesn't serve me. What this formula is asking you to do is do all these things, make the attempt, right? Make different combinations, because the real learning is in combining ideas that we already know. You're not going to learn anything new. You're going to combine things differently. My practices are different because I'm combining different things. How much time can I spend on it that's worthwhile, where I get a result? I don't want to overdo it because I'll stop paying attention. And then how much can I manage the order or the chaos relative to it? So I'm right on the edge where I can try something new, but I don't abandon what I was doing.
This is where volume in dry fire can be really dangerous, because I am super competitive with Adam about this. And Adam is a high volume dry firer.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I will get on that bandwagon and I'll find myself, I'll inch up close to him and then I'll just press a bunch more presses just to get like 3
Mhm.
presses ahead of him. And then he does the same for me. And that's, it's friendly competition. It's fun and stuff. But then I'm like, but what am I really gaining from that other than just
Mhm.
bragging rights? Am I really improving or what's this about? And so, yeah, I was doing
Yeah.
really high volume for quite a while. And maybe that's why I just got to where I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. Think about endurance exercises. It's always the same thing. If you
Mhm.
ride a bike, you're always riding a bike. So how do they make it more interesting? They go somewhere else to ride the bike,
Yeah.
to make it interesting. Even Peloton has made a whole career out of creating movies for you to drive through the Alps or whatever.
Right.
So something that's high volume like that, you have to have a distraction because it's automated,
Yeah.
but we don't want that because what we're
Yeah.
doing is very short burst of activities,
Yeah.
whether you're lifting, and whether you're fighting, whether you're shooting, it's short burst, not endurance. So we
I
don't
just
want
had
this
an
long-term
idea. I
endurance.
need a dumbbell on this
Excellent.
shoulder while I do a thruster and a gun in this hand.
It
That would make it interesting.
would. You would learn something too. You know?
I would learn something. It reminds me of that one gal. Gosh, I'm not gonna be able to think of her name, but she does all kinds of crazy things with guns. She wears a cowboy hat a lot of times. She's just a
Yeah.
fun gal. And she's a great shooter. She'll shoot upside down or she'll balance one-legged on something and shoot something or she'll shoot like on through the edge of a card, a playing card just for the fun of it with a 22 or something, and she's constantly looking for novelty, something new and different and fun. And so, yeah. So yeah.
What would surprise her? There's not a lot of situations you can put her in where she's not going to understand how to shoot well.
Right.
It always comes down to this. Are you accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hit what you're aiming at? Are you consistent?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it fairly regularly? Are you efficient? Do you do it with the least amount of tension?
No.
And are you disciplined? Yeah. More tension, better. And then are you disciplined? Are you learning all the time you're doing this? So like she's leveraging new events to create the learning high. For me, I'm using different concepts to leverage the same thing. Whether I'm thinking on shooting on a dirty background or moving or using cover or I'm flopping on the ground like I'm in Adam's dirt breakdancing class.
Why have we not combined breakdancing and shooting yet? I guess Adam has tried, but
yeah,
Adam has a version.
So, Adam's a man of motion. He doesn't sit still easily. So everything's activity with it, So this little formula really helps you get more creative because you can just look at your training and say, how am I attempting things? What kind of combinations of things have I put together? Is there anything new I could do to put this together?
Yeah.
And then how much time did I spend and how present was I for the time? Because everybody gets hurt on the last rep because they're not paying attention, And then am I balancing my chaos and order? Because human beings are both. We're not just one or the other, but we tend to have a preference. I've learned to be very prepared because my chaotic nature can run amok if I'm not. So it gives me a structure, But for you, I think letting go is a great idea, because you're very well organized, which is always good.
Me, I just want to make it fun again.
Yes.
When it's fun, then it doesn't feel like work, and then it's easy. Then it's the same task, but it's looked at like through a different lens, and then all of a sudden I come to life again. So,
we've got to be childlike. Why do children have so much fun compared to adults? Because everything's malleable and engaging in a certain way. Now, they get bored, and you have to say what to them? If you don't get out of here, I'm going to give you some chores. But we're the same way. We need to have that kind of malleability, that creativity, that interest in what we're doing. And, I set a hard limit for myself. If I ever find myself bored and I can't get over it, and I don't feel an interest in it, and I'm just doing it because it's what I do, then I'm not going to do it, But what I find is I get up every day and I'm reluctant to get started. And when I get started, if I let go, it gets more interesting as time goes on. I get very creative. I come up with weird stuff to teach people. Sometimes it doesn't work. It's not the right stuff. I get that. Sometimes it's not even, I've spent way too much time by myself practicing and nobody else is really thinking about that. Sometimes it is innovative and new, but
Yeah.
I make the attempts.
That's called
And
piddling in some places.
Yeah.
Piddling.
It's important.
Yeah.
Doodling. I'm mentally doodling all the time and seeing what's capable of it, which has led to a high degree of consistency for me as a human being.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, thanks for that. That's really helpful.
I hope so. It's I really I understand your plights. I can't eradicate them for you. I wish I could. You did the one step that most people don't make, which is really committing.
Yeah.
Getting there. And then there's a series of traps after that. You've encountered the first trap of rigid practice without sleep, which everybody encounters. And then you got to find balance again. And training is always about compromise and balance. Even if you had nothing to do all day, I certainly can't practice forever, nor would I get good. And what we find with the highest level competitors is they tend to practice less as time goes on, but it's more meaningful.
Yeah. That makes sense. I guess I'll have to learn that as I go. What matters and what doesn't. Yeah.
You will. But give yourself grace. It's a great word.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, you got to be graceful with yourself and not say, I have to do these things. And also say, I can skip these things. What you have to say is, what's the value of what I'm going to do? And how much can I expect from myself? When I'm on the road, some days I get up and I'm like, I've scheduled the gym before I go to class. And I'm like, nope, today's just a recovery day. And I'm going to stretch. I look at the metrics off my watch. My HRV wasn't good when I slept. And my battery's low. And I could say, I'm just going to go do this thing because, I'm hardcore. But it's not right for me, and it's paying attention. It's being that attentive listener to what's being offered to you right now in this moment that could improve you, instead of saying, I'm going to rigidly do these things or I'll just do whatever I want.
I think it's that process of knowing yourself, really, at the end of the day. It's what it feels like to me, is I'm getting to know myself better. And part of that is having some compassion for myself when I need it. And sometimes I don't need it. Sometimes I need to kick myself in the pants. But I know the difference, and I know that now. Whereas before, everything was just no matter what, there's no quit, no matter what. Well, that comes at a cost. There's always a cost. And it's like, are you willing to accept that cost every time? And I'm not anymore. So
burnout's at the end of it. That's always the truth. It's always burnout. I can tell by my mental voice. If my mental voice is just kind of whiny,
then
I know I just have a motivation. I've got to get myself into the zone. But if I'm tired and I'm really not there, and I have to say to myself clearly, all right, I'm not going to do this. That means I have to wait until tomorrow. I build that need in myself to want to do it the next time.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if you do that 6 or 7 times in a row, you start breaking the habits away. So you got to be, it's always balance.
Yeah. I talked about that in one of my videos, how for me it's very dangerous. I took 2 weeks off the end of the year, and it gave me enough rope and enough latitude to really put myself in a bad spot. I went off my macros. I didn't work out for 2 weeks. I couldn't even recognize myself after 2 weeks. And I don't mean physically. I just mean my own inner construct or whatever had broken down in those 2 weeks, to the point where some old version of me kind of popped its ugly head up and went, oh, hey, haven't seen you in a while. You know what I mean? And that temptation was way stronger than I anticipated. And I had to claw my way back into routine and back into who I know I really am. You know what I mean? And that was hard for me. If I would have known that was going to happen, I wouldn't have given myself so much latitude. But I just thought, I've been doing this for over a year now. I've developed these habits and they're just in my body. And no, I mean, I think we're all susceptible to just sliding back. It's like this slippery slope of sliding back into total comfort and all the things that aren't good for us. That was my experience, but I fought my way back.
In the fight game, it was very difficult to keep athletes from overtraining and not sleeping enough. They wanted to work out 3 times a day, and all that stuff got in the way. And it always gets in it. As a coach, you're constantly trying to do that, and then, my whole life I've been an achiever, but mostly my achievements now don't seem very important anymore because they're not modern. I'll have somebody say, hey, well, you did this thing, but that was then and this is now, so that I got to be real careful. That'll drive me really hard that I'm still the same person, but I'm not. I'm at a different stage in my life. And, I have to develop self-mastery first and foremost, which means, is the habit or the cognitive bias guiding my life, or am I making a decision to do the right thing at the right moment? And do I trust myself to listen instead of demand from myself?
Yeah, that's a very different thing.
It's a lot like prayer, isn't it? God's not a gumball machine. You don't ask for gumballs. Put a quarter in a slot and you get a gumball. Whatever you pray for, you're going to get an opportunity to get better at it. You're not going to get a blessing of it. You're going to get the opportunity. You want patience? Be careful.
That's absolutely true.
But it means you're open again and you're listening. And when people are demanding of themselves and of others, the end result will always be burnout. You'll destroy relationships. You'll destroy yourself. And then you find that old operating system takes over. And the problem is now you've seen the other side. Those people that are comfortably asleep that have never seen it, I don't know how they feel. I've never been one of them. I started training when I was 14, so I don't know what that's like anymore. But I imagine that they can comfortably go on and disintegrate over time. Because the problem is, if you're not moving ahead, even if you're staying still, you're falling behind always. So how do we improve ourselves? Whether it's martial arts or weightlifting or reading, whatever we do, we need to be doing diverse ideas, get better at it, be creative, and change. We're constantly evolving. You don't get there. You don't arrive. You continue to do the work, which is really difficult.
Actually, it's really weird. It is difficult. And yet I can't imagine not doing it. I get some sort of satisfaction out of the work, even when it's hard. It's a weird dynamic I've never been able to dissect, but if I'm not moving forward, like you said, it's not out of fear and it's not out of obligation. It is just, I really enjoy it sometimes. I mean, sometimes it is monotonous, but my overall trajectory is what I'm most fulfilled and most happy is when I'm moving forward, learning new things, exploring new things, like having revelations I didn't have before, meeting new people, new experiences, all those kind of things. And then like using all those things in a really honest way to reflect on my own, where I'm at right now, where do I want to be kind of thing, and transform and change, which is a slow process. But then seeing those old things in me and other people and going, I've been there. You know what I mean? And then having the ability to help them. I don't know. That's just really fulfilling for me. It's like the people I love to help are the people that are just like 2 steps behind me, where I'm like, oh yeah, I was there 3 years ago, and they reach out for help. And I'm like, it just fills me up to help them, because the things that I've learned, which are just second nature to me, haven't always been. And they're just at a different place in the path than I was. And they're the ones looking up going, I can't figure this out. I don't know what's going on. And I can give them some of those building blocks, to help them put some things together. I can't do it for them. Like you said, you can't do it for me. But that is just like my most favorite thing in the world.
We have to suffer, but we don't have to suffer needlessly. Life has a great deal of suffering in it. You will lose people you love. You will have changes in life. There is suffering. What we're trying to do is not suffer needlessly. And so many people make themselves suffer without need. They make their life so much harder than it should be. And then they are proud of that activity, And the Japanese have a good word. Sensei means one who's gone before. So anybody who's slightly up the path, our job is to turn around and not make fun of them, not slap
Mhm.
their hand away, but to reach out and say, hey, I get you. I know you're suffering. I'm suffering too. We can do this, but you don't have to suffer needlessly. You can pick yourself up, and in the process becomes a reward where you feel your strength grow. And, you asked me, you said, hey, you just want to do this thing today, let go. And I said, always. And the truth of it is I prepared so well for this moment that I know I'm enough.
Mhm.
I'm not perfect. I'm not the best. I'm not super organized. I'm enough. And once I know I'm good enough to do something, then if the opportunity showed up and I'm prepared, I'm the luckiest man in the world. Preparation and opportunity, right? And I can do it. And I can step up to it. And it gives you confidence that is real.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
can also say, I don't know, or here's how I failed. And those are all truths in this,
Mhm.
So everybody who watches this, please know none of this is easy. I get you,
Mhm.
I get you. I know how difficult, and I still make life more difficult than it should be.
Me too, Brian. Hell, me too.
Yep.
Well, let's see. Some of the people on the private group are wanting to know what some of your favorite books are. So I don't know if it would relate particularly to this topic, but you have a list or a few books you highly recommend people start with?
All right. So you're not going to like these lists. These are the hard books of the world. Because I've challenged myself. I think I taught myself to read. I'm not sure when I was a kid. There was a book called The Little Red Airplane, and they would read it to me and I'd repeat it. And eventually it all just kind of made sense. And so I read very weirdly and very quickly and directly. So I have a pretty high reading level most of the time, but I like books that are challenging, that I don't get. I don't want one that just resonates and I'm like, yeah, I get you.
Oh,
So one book I recommend to everybody is Thinking Fast and Slow.
okay.
They won a Nobel Prize for this, so it's god awful. These guys know more about how human beings behave, and it's horrifying to read, and it's a difficult read. It is on audio, but it will change the way you look at the world. And it's called Thinking Fast and Slow. Some of the things we talked about are incorporated in this. Highly recommend it. I never hear anybody really say it because it's a hard read. For shooters, Brian Enos's Fundamentals of Shooting and Beyond is something I've read 14 times. The last time I read it, I really feel like I resonated, but I got the lesson that I'd been missing, which he said, be careful about spending too much time on the timer. Don't let it define you. Just shoot. Once you know what things cost, you don't need a timer anymore. It was like from the 1990s, he reached out to where that moment was, and I finally got it. Like I ignored it the first 13 times, apparently. I didn't even know it was in there.
That's
So I
interesting.
tend to read that. I read it when I feel like I'm not doing well in shooting. So that's kind of my whoopee, I'm going to take a trip. I want a little more confidence. I want my mentor to speak to me. So I think that's a great book for that. And I think it's a wonderful way to go. Either one of those books will serve people really well. Now I have a whole list on there. It's interesting. When the first book I read in this space was The Truth About Self-Defense by Masad Ayub. And
Oh, yeah. You
somebody
talked
asked
about
me the
him
other
on
day.
the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was shocked at how well that affected my life, and how much it changed, because he's a critical thinker. So I think that's a great book to read. There's a lot of good tidbits in there. And then, I'm always finding something new. I always get the title backwards. It's either The Confidence Game or The Game of Confidence or Confident Mind. And this guy took Eli Manning with the New York Giants and took him to the highest level. It's a self-esteem, image-building book. It's fantastic. And it gets people to the next level, which I see a lot of shooters really struggling with. But, I've got a pretty narrow group. Usually when people come to me, they've tried a lot of other things with it. But I think that's a fantastic, and there's a whole list on my website that people would really enjoy.
Oh, yeah, I should pull up.
Meditations by the Stoics is fantastic too. People miss what that truly is, but here's a young man who's emperor of the world and had to decide how he's going to live and how to make decisions. And it's incredibly useful. But these books are all hard to read. There's nothing.
Well, thanks for the
fun
heads
and
up on
enjoyable.
that.
Yeah, there's nothing fun and enjoy. I wish it was. But I think a book should challenge you to think differently.
Yeah.
It's great to read something that resonates with you and you're like, yeah, but it's also, it can change your life if it teaches you to look at things in a different way. And the greatest thing about a book is you get to step inside somebody's mind and see how they think.
Yeah.
And
Which
readers
takes a long
tend to
time.
have a better worldview because of that, because they've inhabited another universe instead of their own.
Mm.
You know, the groupthink virus is very prevalent right now in the world.
Mhm.
You know, you need to be a part of the group, and people give up their ability to think, and they still think they're really thinking about things. But thinking fast and slow shows you where everybody makes huge mistakes in their thinking process, and we all do. And we didn't know this stuff. You know, I'm going to use a football analogy because it's on my mind, but there's an old football analogy that defense wins championships. Statistically, it's untrue. There's no statistics to base that up, but people say that's common sense. And see, once it becomes common sense, it becomes wisdom. And now it becomes an operating system for the rest of your life because you said that. There's several good YouTube videos on how defense doesn't win championships. You know, it's the most chaotic part of a sport because we can't really count on it. We don't know what's going to happen over there, but it's always been said that. I was shocked when I saw this and I was like, there's my blind spot, you know, that this is the right activity. And there's so many of those, the sunk cost fallacy. Since I've done this for a long time and I've really invested in it, I should do more of it. This is what we've just talked about. It's not true. You should abandon it sometimes, you know,
I did.
knowing when to let go. Yeah. But now you know what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Right?
Not that I know I'm never going to go back to it. It's just I need to regroup. I know I need to regroup. Yeah.
And you need to reorganize and revise and change it all a little bit. So you can't wait to do it again. And it won't always be that way. There's just days of drudgery.
Yeah.
But I tell you the truth, once you get going, it's never bad. And then when you get done, the process rewards you.
Right. I know. That's what I love about working out.
But you got to get to that other side, which is difficult.
It's a journey. Every day is an adventure.
Yeah. And here's the good news. You're the best you're going to be at this health-wise. You know, as time goes on, it's all going to be taken away from you. So if you can get in good enough shape, the quality of your life will be changed. And when you get to, they say at about 75, that things really change dramatically medically, that people have built this foundation, have a much better life because of it. You know, you're really investing in your future self to get ahead of these processes. And that investment is very hard. You know, it's like people don't understand compounding interest. You know, if you understand what you're doing is compounding interest in your ability to be the healthiest version of yourself. If I hadn't been as healthy as I was, COVID would have killed me. And if I had drank or I'd smoked or I did drugs, it would have killed me. You know, I didn't avoid COVID. I avoided what happened to me afterwards. This is the investment, and it requires you to be present for it and think how important you are and have some self-love and self-mastery to get ahead of it.
Yeah. And I think when I switched from looking at it as a drudgery or looking at it as almost like a punishment mindset versus now I do it with joy a lot of the time. No, it's not always fun. Like you say, there are exceptions to everything. I'll never, ever forget. In fact, I'm pseudo coaching a friend of mine. It's all like for free, just for the fun of it, because she just wants help and I'm not a professional, you know. But anyway, I told her, I go, you know, somebody who I really look up to told me one time, a third of the time you're going to hate it. A third of the time it's going to be okay. And a third of the time you're going to really love it. And that has never left my mind. And now I'm passing that wisdom along to her, you know, because it's just the way life is, you know, and that's normal, like in training. So to know that that's normal is nice.
And we're at the lowest ebb of the energy for our world right now. It's winter, it's slow, it's hard.
It is.
You know, and so if you see one interesting thing, you can get on any social media and see it right now. You can see people suffering, you know, how difficult it is. And even knowing you're not alone, that doesn't really help. But we don't get as much sunlight, you know, we're not out. There's not that growth energy right now, the things to look forward to. And this is
Yeah,
the
which
hard
I don't
times.
understand. Why do people start working out in January? I mean,
The
I would
worst time
think
ever.
like, yeah, New Year's resolution should start in July. I mean, at least people would
Yeah.
get some natural momentum to take them through the harder times, you know? I just think January is the hardest time of the year for me. So I wouldn't want to start a New Year's resolution in January.
No.
No. But
Who came up with that nonsense?
I don't know. I don't know. Why do we do the things we do? I don't even know how we as a culture got to where we are, but yeah.
But nobody does it. That's the real truth of it too. The attrition rate. I were in a gym. I know.
Bad.
The sign up is in January or great.
And what does that do, Brian? That just causes discouragement, that lowers confidence, chips away at people's confidence. It reinforces all of the negative things they already tell themselves, that they're not good enough to stick with it, that they can't do it. And then they're less likely to succeed the next time they try. And that's what's so disheartening about it. It's hard to watch.
The rebound.
Mm.
So there's a rebounding effect. Every time you do a diet and you stop, you're going to gain a couple pounds. Every time you start a workout, your metabolism gets a bit slower afterwards. So, that's why consistency.
Yeah, it's the name of the
race overall.
game. Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, I think what I've learned about consistency is that it doesn't take much. It just takes some, like a little bit, every day is how you move the needle. It's not like going for gold every single day, which is what I used to try to do. And then I couldn't figure out why I was burnt out. And then I would rebound and try again. I got to give myself credit in one regard. I mean, I didn't give up in that way. Like I always did go back to it. But there's a better way. There's a better way. Yeah.
And it's fluid. It's not the same way. It's got to be fluid.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been hard for me to learn how to be flexible, but I'm working on it. I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot better. Okay. One last thing before we go deeper in the weeds. How did this much time go by? This is what happens every time I talk to you. Time flies by. So then people are asking about a new class setup, which I think you did this setup when you came out and trained us, didn't you? Where you took out the classroom portion and just stayed on the ring?
You guys started it. You started the idea.
Oh, okay. I'll take credit.
Now it's much better fleshed out. But the whole idea is we know PowerPoint doesn't work. But just like everybody else, I've been trapped in that methodology. You feel like you have to do it as an instructor. Yeah. And we know that the learning rate, the attrition is god awful. Even if you're a good student, you're taking notes, you can't pay attention. I give everybody the slides and it doesn't work. So I kept getting the feedback. I'd like more time coaching other people in class. Mm-hmm. So I just came up with a bunch of actionable drills that reflect the slides. So I'm going to send the slides out in a booklet form. You can have them so they can prompt it. We're going to put the drills with them so you can see a drill that teaches you to do that with your client and gives you a chance to actually coach and experience the principles.
That's awesome.
And so it'll be, like deliberate coaching. I'm teaching the next one in West Virginia, 3 days of on the range coaching, where you'll be shooting and the other person be coaching. Yeah, it's going to be a lot better, I think. I was tired of hearing myself speak, It's all good stuff. It gets old too.
Oh,
but it doesn't work. Nobody can remember what I said by the time they get to the range.
Well, and also you speak in really big words, Brian. It's hard sometimes for me. Sometimes you say words and I'm like, should I admit I don't really know what he's talking about? Because I always want to say, could you break that down to like a 5th grade level for me, please? I'm not sure what you just said. Yeah.
So I think that, and I've gotten that feedback too. So what I'm going to try to do is just make it so you can do it, Yeah. And then instead of simpling it up, you get to practice it and feel the way to do it and have a drill that goes with it. So all the principles go together because that's how I
did that in Montana a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It started the whole thing. And once again, this is creativity.
Yeah.
I had to make a new attempt because we had a problem with sound.
Right.
And then I had to come up with a new combination and I had the time to do it. And there was a bit of chaos and order in it. And it focused me and forced me into changing this very stagnant behavior of PowerPoint.
That's great.
So, it was fantastic.
Yeah. We had exceptional feedback from that class. So that's
good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
What shall I go with you next? Is there anything else on your mind that you want to talk about?
Nope.
I didn't ask you before the show. Do you have anything in particular that you want to promote too? I didn't ask you that question. I know you just got back from SHOT Show. Where are you going to be this year? Do you even know?
Yeah, I'm all over the place.
You're all over.
Yeah, my training schedule's up. I got a new class, though, pistol tactician.
Tactician? Ooh.
Yeah. So it's the idea of we get good at martial arts because we have a lot of open training and open training environments, from focus mitts to rolling in jiu-jitsu to sparring and things like that. And the problem with firearms training is we have almost none of that.
Right.
So the idea is, I thought, how can I make this a little bit more open, especially decisional wise, and teach some different ideas of movement, dirty backgrounds, using cover, proxemic distances from, compression or retention shooting, moving a little bit, the right activities to do with it, how to make judgments when you look at something very quickly to recognize a pattern of shooting that you may or may not have seen before. What's a good start signal? What's a good stop signal? I'm really excited about it because it's more true to my martial arts background. You're not doing the martial arts, but you're going to be doing the martial art of the pistol. And it's going to be more open and broad. And
that sounds like a cool class name too, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you. I got some pretty nifty ideas to get people to pay attention in a different way. There'll be some novelty and complexity that I have well pilfered from other areas of my life and other classes. So
that is something
I think it's going to be cool.
That's very unique to you specifically, that not a lot of other instructors have that kind of background to be able to integrate what you can integrate, and especially in the way that you do it. Because you've been a coach for so long.
I know.
So long.
We were riding horses back then.
Now it's
We're still riding horses. It's close.
But I admire that in you, because I think about me and I'm like, oh, well, I got my instructor certification in 2020, like, who am I? And I know it's not the years necessarily, but it is a little bit. And you definitely you've put in the reps like above and beyond anyone for Met. Yeah.
It's a passion though,
I know. I can tell you love it.
I have to leave this place better than I found it.
Yeah. Well, you are.
And
you've impacted me a lot.
I have to make up for the genetic deficit that my ancestors caused that I know about, and how do I do that? I change lives, and the only lasting immortality is that you leave people better off than when you met them, and you give them a chance to grow and you mentor them, and they may not say your name, but that lesson goes on and on and on, So that can keep me going forever, it seems like.
Yeah. I can tell that that's what motivates you for sure. So I'm wondering, because one of I call it your superpowers. I don't know what you call it, but one of your superpowers that actually came in part from your childhood and in part because you've been a coach for a very, very long time, is you can immediately, like within seconds, dig into somebody in the most loving way. Like, you can predict patterns of behavior. I think you're on the verge of being able to read minds, I think. And your ability to do this makes you an enigma, I think. No pun intended there, because the enigma is a holster, but
sponsored by Filster, by the way.
Yeah, there we go. Let's turn that around into a plug.
Yeah.
But you're an enigma to a lot of people, and that's part of the draw, I think, that people have to you. I think that they sense your spirit, that you're trustworthy, that you're their advocate. I think people sense that from you, but then there's this piece to you that it just seems like nobody can quite figure out. You're just a little bit untouchable. Like, what is that about Brian Hill? And I'm curious about that, because you have this unique ability to see people in a way that other coaches don't see people. And I don't know how to describe it other than that, and I hope you know what I mean. But I'm wondering, because you are, I guess, I don't know if untouchable is a word, because you're very, like, I don't feel like scared coming up to you, but there is a little bit of me, because you're just like this big guy, Is there a piece of you that you hold back and, like, use as a protective mechanism, I guess. Maybe you've developed that over your life. And instead of like showing that side of you, you dig into other people, and it's like a magic trick almost sometimes. And I wonder, is that a deflection, or is that just your genuine interest in other people? I feel like it's a survival mechanism that's been developed into a something used for good. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, the mechanism is hypervigilance is developed in abused children.
Yeah.
Become hypervigilant by nature. You predict other people's behavior. You begin to manage adults at a very young level, so your childhood is robbed from you. And you become a pattern recognizer. And then I understand a lot, like these cognitive biases, how people make decisions. But the real thing that nobody can, and this is a very good question, I can be cold, I can be ruthless, I can be distant, I can be, because I am the ultimate outsider. I have never fit in anywhere, ever. And I don't think I ever will. I've come to the point where I've really realized that I am the ultimate outsider. I'm deeply empathetic for people, but I also can cut them off if I have to. And that leads to people feeling very vulnerable with me sometimes, as if I'm not being myself. As you said, like there's a part of me that's being held back, but I am an outsider. I always will be. I don't fit in groups. I have several psychological traits of reactance, which means I hold self-independence at the highest level because of what I went through. And these are ways that I learned to develop myself to be useful, but I have tried my whole life to be parts of groups. And no matter what I do, eventually this comes to haunt me, that they will turn against me. They will betray me, even if I show ultimate loyalty to them. And I don't hold myself back in any way anymore, but I have a deep sadness when I meet people because I see the end coming too. And that's what this insight gives you, is you can see the end of the relationship. Like you and I had a difficult talk, and I stated very clearly what the outcome could be between you and I, because I've done it before. And it's not I hold myself back. I'm probably one of the most self-aware humans because of this work, but I also know I don't fit. Just don't have that ease about me. I don't fit. My wife understands me, and she's the only one that, sees me all the time. But there's an intensity, there's an insight, there's an intuition that is not comfortable to be around sometimes, and it leaves me on the outside. And I have, even my friends through my life have always felt this distance, and they've often said to me, well, I don't think you'd be there for me in that moment. No matter how loyal or good. And I always chose poorly with friends because of that. And that's really what it is. I am an outsider. I'm pretty at ease with it now, but I don't think like other people. I don't act like other people. I really root for other people. I'm very much an optimist of the human race. I don't know why, the things I've been through, and I want them to grow and succeed. So by not fitting, the best way I found the way to be a part of people's life is to be that good counselor, that good coach, that good teacher, and it doesn't matter how deeply I show what's in my heart to everybody. There's always a feeling that I'm not quite all the way there. And, I feel it too. I feel like I'm on the outside of things quite a bit. And I felt it. If you watch me with organizations, like I'm very good friends with Adam. Adam gets me. I get Adam. We think very similar. And Adam does the same thing. He's so compassionate, so passionate about what he does with people, and so in his presence, I feel at ease, I don't feel like the outsider. And I'm very fortunate. We just spent a lot of time at SHOT Show, but I think that's really what it is. I know I don't quite fit. I never got to be a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'm hiding anything from anybody. If I am, then it's my blind spot, and I got to say, I'm so lucky to have found someone like Shelley that can put up with this, because I offer everybody these words of wisdom and advice and training, but the way I live is discipline, is ruthless discipline with myself and with others, and it's a different world.
If you've been listening to Defenders Live and something in you knows it's time to go deeper, not just in your training, but in your life, become a paid subscriber of Defenders Live. Each month we meet for a live group call, having real conversations about physical growth, emotional discipline, and spiritual strength. You'll be part of a growing community of people just like you, committed to becoming true defenders of life and of their families. This isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, doing the work, and not doing it alone. So go to defenders-live.com and become a paid subscriber and take your next step toward becoming the kind of defender this world desperately needs. What would happen if you didn't have that discipline, Brian?
I think I'd be a bane upon the face of the earth, to tell you the truth. When I was younger, I fought, and I was funnier. I drank too much to relax, to get to that point. I pursued women to make a connection that I couldn't sustain in itself. So this structure allows me to be a very youthful part of things. But it takes its toll on me, because I got to tell you, mostly I feel alone, as we all do at times, but I feel very outside of things. And I try to conduct myself in a righteous manner, and I fail quite a bit, and I don't treat people as well as I should, or I don't do the things I should, but I always feel outside. And I think that's as much my fault as the
That's
feeling
what I
of
was just
being
going to
outside.
say.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, do you feel outside because you feel like people keep you at arm's length, or do you keep people at arm's length?
Yeah. And maybe it's just the mechanism of how I reach people, but I don't feel like I keep anybody at arm's length. I can be wary of people. Sometimes I see things that I have to be very cautious of. They could be detrimental to me, and there's a bit of perfectionism, but
sure, yeah.
I reach out. Like, I've got some good friends that I really reach out. I enjoy AJ Zito, and I enjoy Adam, and it's peers, but it tends to be, we tend to focus on business and performance and getting better, and then eventually, I don't think I keep people at arm's length. I try to be my genuine self, but there's just a part of me that is not quite with everybody. I feel it. You guys feel it. I know it's a part of that.
Yeah, that's just like it's like something I can't put my finger on, and I don't know what it is.
It worried me when I was younger because there was coldness in it, which is a worrisome feeling. And it allows me to do the thing I need to teach sometimes, where I can not be as wrapped up in your feelings. Yeah. Not as deeply, where I can make because I'll make a cut on you mentally and say, hey, let's cut this out, And that's what true coaching and teaching really is. I'm not a counselor, as people think about it. I'm somebody who, comes and gets you to see the things you don't want to see. So I think it's necessary. I think I found a good niche, but it's not easy. I got to tell you that. It's haunted me. And recently it's haunted me more than most, because I've been through a lot of cycles of this now with martial arts and organizations and shooting, where I just kind of find myself on the outside of things where I shouldn't be, where I've tried very hard to be a part of things, but that seems to be who it is. I think that's what you're asking, what you're feeling. Yeah. And I haven't been able to bridge it. It doesn't matter how loyal or compassionate or how much I over try, that can make it worse. So this is who I am, I think, And
do you feel misunderstood sometimes?
I do a little bit. I not really though. I don't even think. Mostly what I feel like is I'm working on things that may not be relative to people until the future. Yeah. In coaching. And like we had some good talks, and it doesn't make sense until about 12 months later.
You're like light years ahead of me, and I'm still trying to keep up with what the heck's even going on. Yeah.
I was lucky. I don't say this lightly, but I have a pretty good IQ, and I have pretty good EQ, but I'm not good at relationship management. That's always the thing, because I get so caught up on what I'm doing. That's the rage to master, which probably is some sort of spectral autism, that happens with people. But I have this unquenchable need to always be improving, always be good at what I'm doing. There's always more, and it's relentless, and it's driven. And the only thing I've ever read that relates to it, which would be one of my other books, is The Life of Miyamoto Musashi. Not the book of Five Rings, but they actually did his background. I was like, oh my God, I could see how he treated people and how he practiced, and if they didn't serve the practice or the way, how he cut them off, And I think people can feel that sometimes.
Well, that's part of the reason why I was a little bit afraid to ask you these questions. Although in my spirit, I know you're my friend. I know you love me. I know we have trust. I still know you can be cold and relentless if you want to be. You've never been that way to me. But just being around you, Brian, I can tell that can be part of who you are. And so I don't want to bring that out. Even inadvertently. But yeah, that was one thing that's always kind of struck me about you. And, after you came to Montana to the class, all the students who are friends of mine or whatever, we all talked about you, of course, and how great the class was and all that stuff. And then, just things come up and I hear things here and there. And I it's just been like weighing on me, like there's something about you I can't put my finger on. And I've only known you a few years, but I think we've spent enough time together, at least virtually, that I'm like, I'm just going to bring these things to him. I don't even know the answers to these questions. I'm just curious about them.
You're not wrong. I think that was a very good question. Very insightful.
Yeah. But we still don't know the answers, though.
We do. I'm marking the path of aloneness, in training.
But my question is like, do you have to? This is where the disconnect is for me, is like, is that a requirement of your existence? Like, it feels like you have made this, like you said, you've accepted it or you've worked to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
But should you have to, I don't know. You labeled yourself as an outsider. I mean, you of all people, you're so highly intellectual. You know everything about neuroscience and how people behave and all this fancy words and everything. I'm like, but he just labeled himself as a thing. And so does that make it so?
I think it's from my past choices, so I can see it, Like I value independence above everything. I always will, because of my background. It's 100% my background. I was in a cult, and I was with two dysfunctional human beings,
but that was then.
Yeah, but these are operating systems that never go away. In order for me to succeed, I took control of everything.
Yeah, but I'm learning how to let go of control, Brian Hill, in my life in small ways. I'm not saying I can completely change my operating system. Have you worked to let
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Deep counseling with this.
Yeah.
So I'm much better with all those things, but my brain is really geared towards independence.
Right. I mean, mine is too.
And then the problem is, the longer you do something, the fewer mentors you have. Most of my final mentors have passed away. And now I have very few peers that are actually really deeply concerned with the things I am. So like in the shooting world, people get caught up in the newest trend, and I just don't really care very much. It's me. How do you make decisions? How do you get started sooner? How do you stop sooner? How do you make a better outcome of this? What helps people learn quicker? Those sort of things. And, there's few people in the world I can sit and talk to about that deeply. And I find them occasionally, but for me, the connection has to be face to face, because I've got to see you. I've got to read you. I've got to hear you. I got to feel and know that connection. But the thing is, when you're not there, that connection ceases for me in some way, So I fail in relationship management by not reaching out when I should. And, I have several phone calls I should have made this week that I haven't done because, what I'm doing always takes precedence. So that's the outsider part of, when I started teaching martial arts, I had no instruction. I earned my black belt very quickly, and they said, here, start teaching. and I'd been doing assistant work, and then they gave me a class of a school of 200 people. So that doesn't teach you independence, and I got really good at it, and that success feeds that independence even more. But eventually I got so good at it, it became a threat. And once it became a threat, the politics started, which I'm exceptionally poor at. You know, I'm a warrior at heart. I want peace and prepare for war, but I don't know the political games, so I'm out. You know, and that's repeated itself over and over again. You know, a high level of success becomes a problem, and then I miss the cues along it, and then I find myself on the outside of it again. And I always think if I do a better job, I'll be more important, you know. And that's a bit of the counseling really helped with all that. So when I say I'm an outsider, I just feel a bit different than other folks.
But I do too, Brian, and I am learning to actually enjoy it. I really am. Like my show,
that's my acceptance.
Is very different than lots of other shows. And at first there was this like, oh no, I'm not going to be like everybody else. But slowly over time, I've been like, I'm not going to be like everybody else, you know? And I can just show up and be me and feel comfortable in my own skin. Like, what a gift. What a gift to be able to show up that way. And it's not going to be for everyone. And I'm okay with that.
You know, and I've showed myself more on this show than I've showed myself my entire life.
Yeah.
You know, and been more honest and more truthful. And yet, here we are still. You know, there's a little bit of distance, you know. So I've just come to accept
I don't feel distant.
No, I mean that there's a little bit of Brian hiding back there. I don't think there's much left of me to hide anymore, you know. Like, I'm as open as I can be.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned to tell people I love them when I see them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I may not see them again, and I've learned to connect.
You know what I do notice is since you did the interview with me the first time of your life story, which by the way, you guys need to watch it. I think it's been almost 3 years ago now. It's called The Brian Hill Story. You can look it up.
That long?
I think it's been 3 years. Yeah. Maybe 2. Something shifted in you after that interview. For the better.
That's what was hiding, you know? I always thought that could be used.
Was that part of the process?
Yeah, I thought everybody could use that against me, you know?
They can.
I thought it, yeah.
So what?
But it doesn't matter anymore, you know?
No.
It's out there.
Yeah.
And I get to meet a lot of people that are, because I can recognize other people like me.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to see.
Yeah.
Because the behaviors and the patterns are there. And we've had great connections on that. So that, you know, it did change me, but not the way I thought it would, you know? It's not like it brought healing. What it did is it brought use to it.
Yeah, and you talked about it openly on the Compelled Carry podcast. You were at the SHOT Show, and you and Adam and John did a podcast, which I watched yesterday. It was excellent. And I thought, when I heard you say, when you started talking about your past and how it relates to who you are today, I was like, whoa, a few years ago, I don't think you would have done that.
Nope.
I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was great. And it was just so honest and real and not showing that part of yourself or revealing that to people. It takes away from who you are, and it takes away from them being able to relate to you or understand where you're coming from. It's like if you cut off a piece of your life and you pretend like it never existed, like I can't do that either. Like the past and what happened to me is what has made me who I am now. It's a part of me. I don't hang on to it, but it's there and I learned from it. So I thought that was amazing. And yeah.
It's that shadow self that we have to work on, you know, that Freud called your shadow self, and once it sees the light of day, it changes.
Yeah.
You know, and, but most of us try to keep that inside and hide it and think it has, and as long as we believe that, it has complete power over us and it's making all the decisions for us. You know,
and even if we don't hide it, sometimes it makes decisions for us without seriously. Yeah, it really does. It's just, Okay, let me see what else. Okay. You told me one time, and you still say it. You love the word chaos, by the way. Have you noticed you use the word chaos a lot?
I do.
And
I also use order, but nobody cares about that.
Well, in the terms of the word chaos, you speak of yourself. Like I remember thinking you were like all so put together, so professional, and your wife said you were called robotic at one point, which I don't think you're that way anymore. But and you actually revealed this to me in one of our first sessions we had together, where you said, I was just like so like dumbfounded by you, and you said something like, well, on the inside I'm full of chaos. I mean, you just said it with such a straight face, and I was like, where is it? I don't see it. Like, how could that be living inside of you? My question is, does that still live inside of you? And do you still feel that way? And what can you define it better for me, what that means, the chaos?
Yeah, chaos is energy, and it was undirected energy. So whatever caught my attention, I did.
Okay.
It's like being a 5-year-old at heart, and a lot of bad things would catch my attention, so I made structure around the outside of it so I could focus that energy into something positive. Now, most people do it the other way. They're super rigid on the inside. So everything is this way, black or white, absolute. But what they need is a little bit of heating up so they get a little more malleable and they can change their perspective. Like me, I could have 87 perspectives at once if I'm not careful. So I have to have a bit of structure around it. And I always thought I was super orderly, but I came out of such a chaotic environment that I felt orderly relative to them. But, my early, especially pretty dark time, 18 to 23 or so, I can see the chaos just making all the decisions because I was on my own for the first time. My parents had moved away. Everything's making decisions for me. And it was very difficult. It was very bad. And thankfully I had the martial arts to give me something to do, because I can't imagine what would have happened in that time if I didn't have that outlet.
So you were missing a compass, it sounds like. Yeah. You call it discipline or structure, but it was the compass, it sounds like.
Yeah. And it's what do I do with this feeling? There was a lot of rage, it was constant rage inside of me. And that could turn on, and when you're insightful and you're raging, it's really bad because you can ruin a relationship in 3 words.
Yeah.
You can say something and that's it. It's done forever. Yeah. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
And so I had to have a bit of, outlet and find some place where I fit and I could be in a certain group and a pattern and give me something to do that was useful instead of just run amok,
Right.
And we see a lot of young men and women going through that. They're purposelessness now. They don't have a purpose.
Right.
So they're all energy and they latch onto the first thing that comes along and they can change their viewpoint about it. And that's what the chaos is. And it's really good for us. We need a bit of it, but we need a bit of order and we got to ride the edge of it,
Yeah.
So I try to be 51-49 right now. And that's why I'm so structured. And when I get up and I practice.
I find this interesting. I find it interesting, the words that you choose, because I'm filtering what you're saying through the lens for me of what my compass is, which is Christ. And so when you're talking about order and chaos and you're talking about discipline, you're talking about purpose, you're talking about suffering, my mind immediately goes like to scripture. And I find it so interesting, like in your story where you talk about, honestly, you were abused, you were hurt physically, but you were also hurt in other ways, almost directly through the Bible. It wasn't God himself, but the way that your family raised you gave you this perspective of betrayal. And I'm just curious, like, do you still hang on to bitterness about that? And how did that experience shape or frame? Because you've read the Bible over and over again. You're well read. You know what it says. And it's just interesting to me, like what the words that you use and the references that you use are aligned in some ways with what the Bible says, but you're not saying those words. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I think like you and I understand a lot of what you say, but I have a filter that I filter it through. And I'm just wondering like what that experience has been like for you over the years. Like, was there ever a time where you like 100% believed everything in the Bible and then did you feel betrayed and then changed what you felt about it? Or you know what I'm saying? Like that whole journey.
It's complicated because the religion that I was involved with, was very clearly disproven to me. And then I felt utterly compassless. There was nothing for me.
Yeah.
And, I prayed for help, but I didn't feel like I received it, so I felt it was very difficult. And then I resonate more with the idea of Christ as the table flipper, the one that stands up to the Pharisees, the one that carried the cross and suffered. See, I'm much more of an Old Testament, immediate, passionate. I see the passionate side of him as a teacher. Of doing the right thing, going where everybody's seeing. I think that's the multifaceted for all of us. You see the parts that you need to see. So yes, I did feel that.
So I want to challenge you on that, Brian, because okay, a couple of things, and I'm saying this in love. I notice when you speak, a lot of the time you use the word we and us a lot.
Yeah.
And we and us implies that what you say, we get. Like you know what I'm saying? It's like I use the filler word a lot or like a lot. I think you don't realize you do it, but by saying we read the Bible and we get the things we want to get out of it. I disagree with that for me personally. Like for you, that might be true, but for me, that's not true. I see things in the Bible all the time that I don't want to see, or that make me uncomfortable, or that make me feel convicted about something. And so when you say we or us, then I can't agree with that. Do you know what I'm saying?
So, yeah, I wasn't making it like that, but the plural part of it is you resonate, like you said to me, this is how Christ behaves. This is what Christ means. What I'm saying is that, to you. And what I'm saying is that I see the different part of that. I see the passionate struggle.
Okay.
That's what appeals to me. That's the part that raised me up. It's not the good parts as much as the suffering parts, and it gives me a role model of how to carry my own cross. Okay. How to stand up against the order that says I'm wrong all the time, that I'm not doing the right thing. So I think when I say we and us like that, what I mean is you see because you can't see it in its totality. I can't ever read somebody's story and completely get it. Right. I never will. Right. All I can get is parts of it. And usually it's the parts that fill in the parts that are missing for me. Like I value superheroes when I was a kid. Why? Because they were teaching me how to be a man. It's the hero's journey. It doesn't matter that it's a comic book, but Captain America did the right thing. So therefore I should do the right thing. These stories speak deeply and transform us in the part that's missing and empty.
Yeah, I get that. See, when you change your language right there and you used I, that something in me shifted. Like I drew in to you and I wanted to hear more of what you had to say because it was like you were speaking about yourself. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yep.
Anyway, it's crazy how language can be so... Words mean things. I get that. But even the words you choose, remember how I would say, well, I'm going to use the word confidence instead of whatever because that resonates more with me. I just think that that's interesting. Yeah. So as far as is what happens when I go off the rails and I don't have a script.
Sorry, it gives me a breather.
Oh, okay, good. Why, do you feel attacked or something?
Oh, no, not at all. But this is pretty deep stuff,
I know, but Brian, you're a deep guy. I mean, am. This is the thing, like everyone on my show, I can't ask these questions to. I can't. Partly because they're not a deep enough person to do it, and partly because there's not that relationship established to be able to have the rapport, you know what I mean, the trust to do that. So, okay. You kind of touched on this, but I want to really hit this one because I've met quite a few people that are going through similar experiences, even recently, similar experiences to what you have in the past, where they've been abused or just completely abandoned or betrayed in really horrible ways by people that they should be able to trust, caretakers, that kind of thing. And so I think you sort of went there, but this common theme that I keep seeing, even with people closest to me, is this idea of like, well, if God was so good, he wouldn't have let that happen. Do you know what I mean? And there's this betrayal, which we talked about a little bit before, but you didn't go very deep into it. I want, like, specifically, I have people in mind here when I'm saying this. Did you ever feel that way? And you said that you did, that you felt betrayed in some way, that you said you prayed for help, but you didn't feel like you got help. How did that shape? Did you feel like you had a relationship before with God and that relationship was severed? Or what was your experience of that? And what is that like now for you?
Yeah, it's difficult because it's an onion. It's so many things happening at once. The two people you care about the most have betrayed you in a meaningful manner. I started in the church from the moment I could realize it. It was a big part of my life and everything I did. And then suddenly I felt utterly and completely alone. Just in we see these in the stories often of being in the dark cave or the dark place,
Mm-hmm.
and, I felt very resentful of that. What had I done to deserve this? Which is a very common thing that comes through the Bible constantly.
Yeah.
What have I done to deserve this?
Yeah.
And what I realized, though, is I think all of us that go through these things, but myself especially, I've used this to transfigure myself into something. Maybe I wouldn't choose this path, but by going down this path, I think I've done meaningful good in the world that may have never happened without that I may have just been a lazy version of myself without this, that I wouldn't have worked to understand and to improve and to become the ultimate optimist in people that I am.
Mm.
And knowing that my place is to help people find their place that feel this similar way, that this was not a path, an easy path, but I wouldn't change it.
Mm.
At the end of the days, but it was most difficult. And, you have to wonder, why do I deserve this? And the only way to change that you have to turn it into something positive and something good. And that's why my ultimate goal is always to help people that are suffering. And there's people that have it far worse than I did, but that aloneness, and I feel connection through that. Mm-hmm. When I really connect, and I can be that person there in the difficult moments. It prepared me for the chaos of difficulty. We're back to chaos, but I'm good in these hard, tight moments. I'm good in these dangerous places because of that, where if I didn't go through this and I didn't learn these lessons, they wouldn't have any meaning to me in a deep way. And then I wouldn't be able to stand up to the things that I stand up to.
And I wonder if...
Yeah.
Maybe that's your advantage to being an outsider, Brian, because anyone who's gone through that kind of pain and trauma, I think a piece of them always feels like an outsider because no one can understand what I went through. And maybe God has made you that way to have that outsider piece so that piece stays there on purpose so that those people can connect with that part of you. And that is what can draw them in to trust you and that you can be an advocate for them. And maybe it's actually a good thing, but it is painful for you, it sounds like sometimes, to be that way. But
isn't it the ultimate story of the Bible, though? To send your only son to suffer?
Well, I guess.
Isn't that it? To feel and to know and to be a part of this? Not that I'm comparing myself anyway, but that is a lesson that I take strongly from it. That the true suffering you don't know. What somebody's been through, you never will, but you can be deeply connected in a different level. And this doesn't have to be a generational pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to continue doing the same thing that your forefathers did, your parents did, that you
Right.
can change this.
I think so many
And
people don't realize that, Brian.
Yeah.
I think most people, maybe they realize it's possible, but it feels so dismal or improbable that what's the point to some people, I think, you know? I don't know.
The other side is I know what real evil looks like too. You know, most people don't know what evil looks like. It looks like you. It looks like me. It looks like it looks like normal people, you know, and to really stand up against real evil is a difficult thing. And, you know, taking somebody and dissolving their identity and telling them they're nothing is probably one of the most evil acts a human can conjure, you know. It far exceeds, it's the murdering of the soul, you know, and ultimately we have choices to make, to do the right thing, to become better than we are, to fail.
Do you really believe, though, that even evil, like a person who is evil, though, they can't take your soul if you're God's?
That's right. But you have to get to the other side of that, you know, and
Sure.
you have to.
You're saying it
evil's
feels like it in the
insidious.
moment.
Yeah. Evil's insidious, you know. It tells you what you want to hear. I always use this
Sounds
correlation.
good,
If it's easy at the beginning, it's probably not good for you later, you know.
Yeah, that's
It's difficult
true.
to get started. It's probably great for you later. So I always base my decisions on the ease of, oh yeah, you know, I want to do that. And I'm like, it's probably not a good decision because that's the whisperings of evilness right there in that moment that, you know, I can join this group and be a part of this and everybody believes in me and that's an evil thing to me sometimes where I've got to say, what do I truly, truly believe? You know, can I be loving and compassionate in this moment instead of the betrayed boy, you know?
Do you feel joy when you help people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the deepest joy that I feel in life. You know? I've got to be somewhat emotionally compromised. I know that. I don't know what other people feel, so it's hard to imagine, you know. But I feel that there's a connection that happens between people when you really do good work together.
Yeah.
There's a trust and a feeling and a resonance of souls singing in the direction of righteousness in that moment. And that really is you know, people say, I wait for the moment where somebody gets it. I don't wait for that. I wait for the moment where we both stand in the place and face it together.
Yeah, you stood
face it.
alongside me and did that in a class, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. And you celebrated with me too. You were right there with me. I wasn't using you as a crutch, although it was really nice to have you there. But you made me stand on my own 2 feet, and you stood next to me. And after I did the thing, and I did more than I even thought I could do, it was like, whoa! And then you celebrated with me, and that is a great moment. It is really.
You did the same thing to me with the interview. You cried for me.
Oh.
I've told you that over and over, but you cried for me. You know, I'm not going to say I don't cry, but I don't cry easily anymore. I don't let it out, you know, and in that moment to relate the story, you being able to grieve for me a little bit gave me space, you know, because it's hard to handle all these things at one time when you're speaking, you know, and that's where some of the distance has to come in. But you did that for me. You know, as I celebrated for you, you grieved for me. You know, and the connection I felt when somebody looked at me and wasn't, you know, because the problem with some of this evil stuff is people turn their eyes away. They can't take it. It's too much. You know, they're like, oh my God, how can I handle that? You know, if you're a cop, you come home every night from trauma, you know, 3 or 4 traumas every day, and then you have to reinstitute yourself back into a normal family. It's very difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and you learn to hold it inside yourself and not talk about it. And that's kind of what trauma victims, abuse victims do, is they hold it inside, you know, and hold a distance. And then when somebody sees it, it comes out so ugly sometimes, you know, and then you can overwhelm the other person. So in that moment of that interview, you grieved for me as I stood with you as you faced your fear. You did the same for me.
Wow.
And, you know,
That was
it doesn't
easy
feel as big to you.
No, it was easy for me to do that.
That's
It wasn't hard for me at all. I mean, that's what's so crazy is I think that the gifts that God gives us aren't the hard things. They're the easy things. The gifts are the easy things that just are like, oh, I'd do that for free. oh, I would do that for you any day of the week. Like, that is a gift, you know? And I think people overlook those gifts so much. And I even have to make myself aware of them sometimes and go, oh, that's a gift for me. That's just something I'm naturally gifted with that other people aren't. And I forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what's so cool about us all being so different. So different.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate the one time that I reached out to you and I was in a really low spot. And I think maybe for the first time I got a little bit of piece of the aloneness that you feel. I was really feeling it that day. And I can't remember what I said, but you're like, yeah, I know how you feel, you know? And I was just like, oh, somebody knows how I feel. Because it was just alone in my basement. Just, no, it was a day.
Those are the trials and tribulations. They always come at our weakest moment when we're by ourselves, you know?
I'm by myself
Come
a
when
lot.
you're feeling great, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, those are the decisions that matter.
Yeah, they are.
It's the time that matters.
Yes, it is. Yes,
and
it is.
if you don't prepare for that moment, how can you do well? You know, you can't just rise up in that moment. You have to prepare yourself for that. And at least knowing you're not completely alone in that feeling is good, you know?
Yeah, it really is. That really meant a lot to me that day, just to know that I think I felt misunderstood or alone. I don't remember what it was, but it was some negative feeling like that.
I was hurting for you. I could see it everywhere in your post and everything. So
yeah. And that's one thing I've started doing that I wouldn't have done even just last year, which is share my struggle, which is being like, I feel like this today. Does anybody else feel like this? I can't be the only one, you know, like, why is it so hard for me to take care of myself sometimes? I struggle with that. And then I talked about, you know, the end of the year and how I went down the slippery slope, you know, and I wouldn't have done that a year ago. I wouldn't have want to share that part of myself a year ago. And now it's like, I'm a human and everyone goes through these things. And I don't think that, I mean, my opinion isn't shared enough online. There's too many shiny things online that are really, they're not unattainable, but they take a lot more work than people realize. And I just want to share more of the reality of it. And so that when people start a workout routine or they start whatever it is that they're looking up to me for, that they know the truth about it. You know, I think that's important.
Because there's a price. There's always a price, you know, and that's what, when you show just successes, nobody sees the price. You know, everything costs something of value. It costs you time and energy and love and passion. And you're going to have those tough moments, you know, and there's a price to it.
You know what else there is, though? What starts as being really hard, uncomfortable, and I don't know if I'll ever figure this out, eventually turns into freedom.
It does.
I would have never guessed that. The very things that I resented in the beginning that held me accountable are now the things I consider like I'm joyful about and feel freedom around. Explain that one to me, Brian. That doesn't even make logical sense when I say it out loud, but it's true.
That's the value of process, though, isn't it?
I don't know what it is.
That's what gratitude really is.
But nobody really gets it. And I think maybe I'm just not describing it well enough. Like, you got it, but most people don't get it. I think
it's gratitude.
Communication books.
You know, but do you have the framework? That's the whole thing. You know, that's always the thing when we're trying to communicate. Are we at the same spot? You know, can we take this very imprecise English language and use words that connect us together? You know, and what we learn through process is gratitude for being fully present on your shitty days, on your good days, on your mediocre days, and then being honest that God, all right, this was difficult today. You know, you know. And then you get to a point where your life looks so incredibly consistent to other people. It doesn't feel that way, but it looks that way. You know, and they're like, and then they'll say things to you like, well, it's easy for you. You know, it comes naturally for you. And you know, you got to be careful of that because that builds resentment too. You're like, no, there's the price. And I think you being honest with that is really important. It won't change the nature of the the transformation. You know,
Mhm.
that's a part of it. But once you get started on this process thing, wow, what a great end result. Whatever you now becomes your clear goal for yourself is what you become. When you don't do that, you have no clear goals. Whatever pushes you is what you become.
That's exactly, yes, that's exactly true. And somebody said something to me the other day about being consistent. And I saw this video about it. It was like, people that don't have what they want in life, let's look at it as being overweight or whatever. Yeah, they are being consistent. They're being consistent in not knowing what they're putting in their mouth or eating mindlessly, or they're being consistent in that. That is a type of being consistent. I'm just choosing to be consistent in a different way. That's all it is, being mindful of my consistency and having a clear goal, like what you're talking about. And so maybe that's the difference between being pulled in a direction and being pushed, like what you're saying, where you're just like doing things like on a whim and there's no clear goal. There's sort of this, you're just being pushed around by the world, your circumstances, the things that are happening in your life or what you see on the internet or whatever. But if you have a clear intentional goal and a process and system to get there, it's like you can't lose, Brian Hill. Like if you keep showing up, and you don't have to do it perfectly, but you just keep showing up and you try. Honestly, you honestly do that. And stop with the excuses and the lies you tell yourself and have enough awareness to know when that happens. You can literally change your life in like a year, maybe even 6 months, but a year for sure. Am I right?
You're correct.
It's not impossible. In fact, it's likely.
You know, the lack of free will is stimulus response. Something tells me this and I do that. And until you can get a hold of that and say, I'm going to make a choice, which is very interesting because that's always how you make a choice that I'm going to take a minute before I eat that candy, 1 minute, or I smoke that cigarette, or I take that drink, or I lash out at somebody. And that starts stretching into choices that you make for yourself. If you're not making those choices, your neurochemistry, whatever you want to call it, the stimulus response is saying, here's your habit, and you're never going to feel fulfilled because the first time you establish that habit, it's the best it will ever feel. And after that, you will be chasing ghosts.
Right.
And, you know, and it's making these small choices every day.
And they're the tiniest choices.
They are.
That's what builds people, though. Because the way that you do anything is the way you do everything, or maybe it's the other way around. But you get what I'm saying. It's true.
Just slow down and think for a second, you know?
And feel for a second.
Yep. Why do I have to go do this now?
Yes.
You know?
Totally agree with you. And you and I have already said we are not perfect. We mess this up all the time. I mean, I do.
Amen.
I mess this up all the time.
Too.
And yet, I know that I was made for more, and I remember who I am, and I get back on the horse every single time. And you know what I've noticed is as time has gone by, I'm able to do that more quickly now than ever before. You know, what used to take me months to recover from, going into the shame cave and the self-condemnation and you know better and blah, 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 just takes longer for you to bounce back and be resilient and start again. Whereas if you take like emotionless correction, if you take all the shame cave out of it and just see it for what it truly is, stick to the facts, go, okay, what did I do there? And how do I choose differently or choose to do differently next time? Then you just do that differently next time, like you literally do. It takes so much of the pain out of it. And I still find myself in the shame cave sometimes, but it's like, it's this versus this now. And that's because it's a practice thing. Am I right?
Yeah. You know, I learned the 3 forgivenesses from my counselor. First is forgive yourself for your shortcomings. Forgive your parents. That's who they were. And then forgive your enemies, because if you don't, you're going to repeat their mistakes. You know, when you get to this forgiveness of nobody has influence over me anymore, because I'm not saying it's my parents' fault, it's not my fault, it's not my enemy's fault. Now the choice is mine. And man, is that a scary place sometimes, you know? But the more you occupy it, the smaller it gets, you know, and it doesn't get as scary to make these big choices anymore and to be open. Because Can you imagine that you live your whole life and you never get to see the best version of yourself?
And your kids don't get to see it,
Yeah.
and the people who love you don't get to see it, and you don't get to influence the world or your community or wherever God sent you in to do. Like,
That's right.
that's what I feel like is my mission, my obligation, my obedience to him. Like, I feel that same mission that you feel in a different way, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels the same, but not the same. And that is it. That will never leave me. It will never leave me.
And that's
And
all love, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
love.
yeah. Yeah. And you talk about forgiving yourself. I had to learn to love myself too.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But anyway, well, I think we went through most of the deep things I wrote down.
Good. Those were very insightful questions.
Yeah.
Very, very insightful questions.
I appreciate you letting me ask you those questions. Yeah.
But you gave me a format to talk about something that, has happened over and over again. And since we talked about it, who knows what transformation will come about,
Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what I love
we've
about
done the
you.
hard work.
We're still
I
doing
appreciate
the
you
hard
caring.
work.
Oh my gosh. It never ends.
No,
Never
and it
will.
shouldn't. It shouldn't.
Mm-mm.
And I think that there should be a little bit of joy in doing the work too. I really do. And knowing that I'm not the only one, that there are people like you and Adam and others who are like, feel like we're all hitched to this wagon, just like one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
And that is a great feeling to know that there are other people hitched to the wagon. So.
And I love you guys,
Yeah.
I love you for doing the work and being present and being a part of it and being a part of my life and allowing me to be a part of yours, and it means the world to me. And that's a more unique thing that's just happened recently in my life, where I can say that out loud, mean it in a way, and then also be grateful for it,
Mm.
and it's a wonderful thing. So
You
I
are
appreciate
evolving,
you.
Brian. You are.
Well, yep, we both are.
Yeah. This has been good. Well, thank you for humoring me with all of my questions and not knowing the script or the format. And I don't know if I practiced letting go or not, but I did go into a little bit of a scary place. And I don't think I framed up all the questions perfectly, but I did my best. And that's where I'm at today. So.
Yep. I appreciate you taking the risk and letting go.
Thank you.
Your shows are always best when you're fully yourself.
Yes. And that's a practice. I'm practicing that too. Well, thanks for your time today, Brian. I really appreciate it.
All right. My pleasure.